Well, if Pluto is big enough to be a planet, what about Ceres? Ceres is the largest thing in the asteroid belt. Right? So should that be a planet?
Is that also a planet?
Yeah, it just gets very complicated. And so the decision, it's just a matter of what you call it, right? And so we're going to call Ceres and Pluto and its friends out there in the Kuiper Belt dwarf planets, meaning that they're not a planet like Jupiter, they're not a planet like Earth or Mars, but they are still planets. They're just dwarf planets. It's just a different adjective. But at any rate, going back to the IAU, in the context of this, there was legions of angry astronomers and people who were publishing screeds and distributing them on paper during the meeting, and wholesale rebellion. So there's, it's just a little terrifying, right? So there's
especially if you're used to a certain decorum, you're like, what the, it's a free-for-all.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yes. So Jocelyn Bell is a famous astronomer, and the reason she's famous is because she discovered pulsars, and her advisor got the Nobel Prize for it. So yeah, exactly. So she's famous for that, but she is also an amazing woman. She is very small in stature. She is a very tiny woman, but she dominated one of these discussions because she was on the IAU, like the board, basically.
The panel?
Yeah. Not the panel that reviewed the status of Pluto, but on the board that convened that panel, right? And so she ran one of these lunch meetings. And so she was standing in a room full of like 150 angry astronomers. And so here is this tiny woman bringing this entire herd of unruly astronomers to heel. She said, okay, I study pulsars. I have no personal stake in the status of whether or not Pluto's a planet, much less exoplanets. I study pulsars. I have no stake in this. So here's how it's going to go. You will have the mic for 45 seconds. If you cannot make your point in 45 seconds, I will cut you off. And so she did. She had series of comments, and then she put up on, at the time we had an overhead projector, I think, because I think she was writing out longhand. So she said, okay, well, what about these words? And then she would stop everybody, put up the words, let people have a chance to read the words, and then she would take a vote. Is this okay? Is this not okay? And then based on the response, she would change a word or change a sentence. And okay, will this be okay? Yes, okay, let's go. So she took this group of 150, 200 angry astronomers, brought them to heel, and made discernible progress on this very contentious matter in the space of an hour. She was amazing. She's
a freaking hero.
Exactly. So things like that are the kinds of things that I try to remember, right? The next time I have to be trying to bring a group of angry cats to herd. You know?
Right. And literally, I mean, her having no horse in that race had to simplify it. I mean, were the other groups sometimes run by people who did have a horse in that race?
So she was trying to make the group go forward and change it from what was just a complaining session or a ranting session into something that was actually making forward progress. But the people that were most angry about this were people who studied things in our solar system. Is this a planet? Is it not a planet? And are the other things that are being found out there planets or not? But then the other people that were angry were people who studied exoplanets, because if you're going to call a certain number of things in our solar system planets, then you have to think about what the ramifications are for that naming scheme when you start finding other planets. And so the definition that came out of that meeting sounds a little strange and dorky, and among other things, the term clear its orbit or something to that effect, which indicates that asteroids that are surrounded by debris wouldn't be counted as planets. But an asteroid that has enough mass to pull itself into a sphere, which Ceres does, that means it's a dwarf planet.